What's going on in YouTube land? It's me, Miss Billman. This video is all about ratios. Now, a big theme of this unit 7, is ratios, but sometimes we need to just go back and refresh our memory, and then we can move on to things we know. So here are some shapes, right? There's circles and some triangles. They all happen to be purple, but we're going to actually write a ratio about what I have up here. So just in case you forgot, a ratio is a comparison of something. Okay, well, actually, it's, in our case, two quantities. So it's like two amounts. So if I'm looking at my amount of circles to triangles. So I have 3 circles, right? I mean, I counted them. 1, 2, 3. And 2, how many triangles? So 5 triangles. So I have a ratio of 3 to 5, or I'm writing it 3 circles to 5 triangles. Great. That's great. I could write it in different ways. So 3:5, or I could write it 3 to 5, and you'll see multiple ways throughout this unit. And one more way I could write this is 3/5. So like a numerator and denominator, right? So 3/5, 3/5. Those are all ways you will see ratios written throughout this unit. So I'm going to grab my pencil because I want to go back to unit 1. I know it seems like a really long time ago, but unit 1, we looked at factor puzzles. So let's try one right now just to refresh our memory. So let's say we have this ratio of 3 circles to 5 triangles. But how many circles would there be if I had 15 triangles? So I could solve this multiple ways, which is good. You know, in math, it's always good to recognize the different ways to solve it. So I could say, okay, well, 3, colon 5 is equal to blank. See, I almost wrote 2. Erase it, 3, colon 15. So I have this blank, and I could say, well, what happened to the 5 to get 15? Well, I multiplied by 3. And I have to do the same right there, and I get 9, which, yes, that is the correct answer. I could even pull up my handy-dandy factor puzzle, and I put circles and triangles. So I put 3 and 5 up there because that's our kind of starting ratio, and 15 under triangle. So 5 is the number they have in common, 5 and 15. 5 times 1 equals 5, and 3 times 1 equals 3. So I would then ask myself, 5 multiplied by 3 equals 15, so 3 times 3 is 9. Again, getting this same answer. That's great. But, and this needs some underlines, we're going to run into things that aren't so perfect. We are going to have ratios that aren't just, well, yeah, you multiply by 3, that's what you get it. But what happens when it's not an easy answer like that and an easy ratio? Well, my friends, I know things get crazy, but we have an answer. We have a solution, really. We're going to actually look at a story problem. A store mixes blue and yellow paint to get green. It has a blue to yellow ratio of 2 to 5. I'm going to actually square that. I know it's important. How many gallons of blue paint should be added to 3 gallons of yellow paint to make green? So if I were to try this in a factor puzzle, it wouldn't work. So now I have kind of a new and improved one. So there are 2 columns and 3 rows. That top row, it is all about the original ratio. So that original value that we were given, they always have a value of 2 to 5. Now I'm going to label my columns, blue, yellow. So the blue has 2, the yellow has 5. That middle row, now that's where I'm going to have to put the number 1. That's the unit rate for 1. Now you're probably like, well, but Miss Billman, how are we going to find that out? Well, I will show you. Do not worry. As long as you stick with me on this video, you will see this multiple times. So that is where our unit rate goes down to per 1, which we don't have here, right? We have a ratio of 2 to 5. We don't have a 1, but it really is simple to see. When we put the number 1 in here, the number 1 will go between two numbers. I will explain that. That probably means nothing right now, but I will explain it. Now, we know we have 3 gallons of yellow paint, and the 3 will go in the yellow because this bottom row is all about the ratio that we are wanting, right? We're trying to find this missing value. So again, original value, unit rate, missing value. Like I told you guys, the 1 goes between two numbers. That's where that 1 will go. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to grab another marker so we can see the different color. So I asked myself, something happened to this 5 to get to 1. Well, 5 divided by 5, that equals 1, right? I mean, any number divided by itself equals 1. And to go from 1 to 3, I multiplied by 3. Ooh, okay, well, when I do on one side, I have to do the other. So I have to I have to divide by 5, right? But 2 divided by 5, I could write an actual number, or I could write it as a fraction, 2 over 5. My next step is to multiply by 3. That's like saying 3 over 1. So, I mean, I could write 6 over 5, and that would give me an answer. But if you do write a number, I mean, you totally could, but it really is so straightforward, and you see your thinking right in front of you when you write it this way. So I could say 6/5 or 1 1/5 as a final answer, right? It would have taken a lot of mathing to try and find that out. I'm going to give another example. Now you'll have to excuse me. I think I actually used the wrong colors on here, but I'll walk you through this one. It's the same ratio of 2 to 5 for blue to yellow. How many gallons of blue paint should be added? So actually we want to add yellow paint this time, but we already have 8 gallons of blue paint. Now this one could be solved by just saying, oh, well, what happened to the 2 to get 8? You multiply it by 4. But I want to still walk through this so you could see this. So my top one, my original ratio, 2 to 5. My middle one will be a number 1, and my bottom one, I'm looking for that missing value of yellow, so the yellow is empty. I put the number 1 in the middle. That's my rate per 1. Again, rate per 1. Okay, so you put the 1 right there. Now remember, the top one is the original ratio I was given. The middle one is the unit rate per 1. The bottom row, I should be saying row, the bottom row is the ratio that has the missing value, the ones that we're wanting to know. So I write the number 1 in between my 2 and in my 8. Then I have to ask myself, what could I do to the 2 to get 1? Well, I divide 2 by 2, and I get 1. And to go from 1 to 8, I multiply by 8. And I get 8. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I divide by 2. 5 divided by 2 is like saying 5 over 2. I made like a big loop right there. 5 over 2. Then I multiply by 8. And I get a number that is 40 over 2. I could leave it that way, but I know 40 seconds would be like saying 20, right? I mean, that would be my number. With these, always write out your thinking. Do not be afraid to go back and fix things. So I get 40 over 2, which is equal to 20. That's my final answer. You can do this. Follow along with me.